They fired the black woman doctor until she saved the CEO's life. The patient's crashing. "Dr. Harris, we're losing him!" The nurse's voice sliced through the chaos of the trauma bay. Alarms screamed. Monitors flashed red. And in the middle of it all, Dr. Amara Harris, 28, stood calm, focused, her gloved hands moving with precision over the patient's chest. "Epinephrine now," she ordered. Sweat trickled down her forehead beneath the sterile cap. The night shift had been brutal. 3 emergency surgeries, 2 code blues, and now this. A car crash victim whose pulse was fading fast. The intern beside her fumbled with the syringe. "Doctor, should I push it?" She snapped, her tone sharp but steady. The adrenaline hit the patient's system. A moment later, the flat line on the monitor blipped once, twice. And then, miraculously, a faint rhythm returned. "He's back," she whispered, exhaling slowly. Around her, the team sighed in relief. Another life saved. Another impossible night. But even as Amara pulled off her gloves, she felt the weight of something darker pressing on her chest, something she couldn't fix with medicine or skill. Because earlier that day, she'd received a message that said, "Report to the chief's office at 9 a.m. It's about your conduct," and she knew exactly what that meant. The next morning, the hospital corridors were flooded with the soft hum of early activity, nurses pushing carts, interns clutching clipboards, patients shuffling past with IV poles. Amara walked briskly through it all, her white coat swaying with each step. Her badge read, "Dr. Amara Harris, Surgical Resident, Cardiology Unit." Her mind replayed last night's victory. She'd saved a man's life after everyone else had given up. But she had no time to celebrate. When she reached the chief's office, 2 people were already waiting inside. Dr. Caroline Shaw, the chief of medicine, a stern white woman in her 50s with ice-blue eyes, and Dr. Peter Langston, the hospital's medical director, known for his ambition and lack of empathy. "Dr. Harris," Shaw began coolly, gesturing for her to sit. "Please close the door." Amara sat, her heartbeat loud in her ears. Langston spoke first. "There have been complaints," she blinked. "Complaints?" "Yes," Shaw said, folding her hands. "From patients, and from certain staff members. About your attitude." Amara stared at them, confused. "My attitude?" Langston leaned forward. "You've been described as aggressive, intimidating, difficult to work with." Amara's jaw tightened. "You mean I've been assertive? I take charge when lives are on the line. Isn't that what a doctor is supposed to do?" Shaw sighed. "We understand you're talented, Dr. Harris, but you must also be a team player. And unfortunately, given the recent incidents, the board feels it's best to let you go." The words hit like a punch to the chest. "Let me go?" Amara whispered. "You're firing me?" Langston adjusted his tie. "You'll receive a formal letter by the end of the day. You may finish your current cases, but your hospital privileges are suspended pending review." Amara stood, her voice trembling. "I just saved a man's life last night. Ask anyone in the ER. I work harder than—" Shaw raised a hand. "This decision is final." Silence hung in the room. Amara stared at them both, her throat tight. She wanted to scream, to fight, but she saw in their faces that it wouldn't matter. They'd already decided. By afternoon, the news had spread through the hospital. "Did you hear? Dr. Harris got fired." "Seriously? I thought she was one of the best." "Yeah, but you know how she is." Too confident, too confident. That phrase burned in her mind like acid. When she walked through the halls, people avoided her eyes. The same nurses who once cheered her victories now whispered behind her back. She packed her things quietly from the resident's locker room, her stethoscope, her notebook, the photo of her mother she kept in her locker. As she reached the exit, Dr. Malik Jones, a fellow resident and one of her few friends, stopped her. "Amara, wait." She turned, her expression brittle. "This is insane," Malik said. "You saved more lives this month than anyone. Why would they—" She shook her head. "Because I'm not the type they can control." Malik's jaw tightened. "You think this has to do with—" She gave a sad smile. "With me being a black woman who doesn't apologize for being good at her job?" "Yeah, Malik, I think it does." He hesitated, then handed her a folded piece of paper. My cousin works at Trinity Medical downtown. They're hiring. It's not as big as this place, but she took the paper, her fingers trembling slightly. Thanks. He gave her a quick hug. You'll land on your feet, Amara. You always do. Outside, rain began to fall, a slow drizzle that shimmered against the glass doors. Amara stood under the awning, staring at the hospital logo shining in blue neon. St. James Memorial Hospital, excellence in care. She let out a shaky laugh. Excellence, huh? As she walked away, her phone buzzed. It was her mother. Amara, sweetheart. Her mother's voice came through, warm and tired. How was your shift? Amara hesitated. It was long. You sound upset. I'm fine, Mom, but she wasn't. Her heart was breaking. Everything she'd worked for, years of study, sleepless nights, sacrifices, was gone in a moment. Her mother's voice softened. Baby, remember what your father used to say? You can't dim the sun just because the clouds are jealous. Amara smiled weakly. Yeah, then keep shining, sweetheart. You hear me? I hear you, Mom. She hung up, her eyes stinging. That night, Amara sat in her small apartment, surrounded by textbooks and unpaid bills. She stared at her medical license framed on the wall, her name in elegant black ink, Dr. Amara Harris, M.D. Everything I've done. For what? She whispered. The city lights blinked outside her window, reflecting in her tear-filled eyes. Then suddenly, her phone buzzed again. An unknown number. Hello? Dr. Harris? A deep male voice. This is Charles from Trinity Medical Center. We got your information from Dr. Jones. Could you come in tomorrow morning for an interview? Her heart skipped. Yes, of course. Excellent. 9 a.m. sharp. When the call ended, Amara leaned back and exhaled. She didn't know it yet, but that phone call was about to change everything, because at Trinity, one of the hospital's most powerful figures, the billionaire CEO of St. James Memorial, would soon become her patient, and when his life hung in the balance, the same doctor they had fired would be the only one who could save him. The elevator doors opened with a quiet ding, and Amara stepped into the gleaming marble lobby of St. James Memorial Hospital, the same place that once broke her. It felt surreal, the scent of antiseptic, the echo of polished heels, the cold hum of fluorescent lights above. Everything looked the same, but she wasn't. This time she wasn't a trembling resident clinging to her badge. She was the woman who had saved the CEO's life, the one with the power to rewrite her story. Dr. Harris, a voice said. Amara turned to see Dr. Caroline Shaw, the same chief of medicine who had signed her termination letter months ago. Shaw's eyes flickered with forced warmth, the kind used for board meetings and press photos. Welcome back, she said smoothly. Amara smiled thinly. Thank you, Dr. Shaw. It's good to see the hospital still standing. Shaw's jaw tightened. We've made some changes since you left. So have I. The tension between them was electric. As they exchanged polite small talk, Ethan Shaw appeared from the hallway, dressed in a tailored gray suit, looking healthier, calmer, but with an unspoken guilt still lingering in his eyes. Dr. Harris, he greeted. Amara's lips twitched into a neutral smile. Mr. Shaw, let's get you settled in. The board meeting starts in 20, of course. When they entered the boardroom, whispers followed. Seated around the polished mahogany table were the same faces that once watched her career burn. Executives, senior physicians. Power in human form, Ethan stood at the head of the table. As you all know, Dr. Amara Harris has returned to St. James. She'll be heading our newly structured cardiac intervention division. Murmurs filled the room. Dr. Langston, the smug, medical director who once called her too aggressive, adjusted his tie. With all due respect, Mr. Shaw, reinstating a doctor who was previously dismissed raises concerns. Ethan's calm voice cut through. She wasn't dismissed for incompetence, Dr. Langston. She was dismissed for threatening fragile egos. The room went silent. Amara looked at Ethan, startled. He wasn't defending her out of pity. He was making a statement. Langston forced a smile. Well, if the CEO believes she deserves another chance, Ethan's eyes hardened. No, she's not here for a second chance. She's here because she earned it. The power dynamic shifted instantly. Amara straightened, her confidence radiating. Thank you, Mr. Shaw. I intend to do my work, nothing more, nothing less. And with that, she began her second life at St. James. Days passed. Her new office overlooked the city skyline, glass, steel, and endless lights. On her first day back, nurses greeted her with cautious smiles. Residents whispered in admiration, and even patients seemed drawn to her calm authority. But not everyone was pleased. In the staff lounge, Dr. Langston's voice hissed behind closed doors. She's dangerous. Shaw's blinded by gratitude. If she finds out about the trial cover-up, we're done. Trial cover-up. The words were low, but Amara overheard them as she passed by. Her heartbeat quickened. She slowed her pace, pretending to check her phone. Langston continued, If she digs into patient files, it's over. Shaw can't protect us from the board this time. Another voice whispered back, Then make sure she doesn't dig. Amara's blood ran cold. What cover-up? She didn't know it yet, but her firing had never been about attitude. It was about silence. That night, after hours, Amara sat in her office with only the glow of her computer lighting the room. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling archived reports from her old login credentials, which, surprisingly, still worked. Cardiac trial results, 2023. She scrolled through the documents until one caught her attention. Patient death, case redacted, internal investigation closed. Her stomach turned. She remembered that case. A young woman named Tanya Ruiz, who died during a cardiac stent trial. Amara had raised concerns about the experimental drugs dosage. The board ignored her, calling her emotional. 2 weeks later, Tanya died. The case had disappeared soon after. Now she saw why. Someone had changed the dosage logs. The records were falsified to cover the pharmaceutical sponsor's liability, and her name, Dr. A. Harris, had been listed as consulting physician, making it look like she'd signed off. Amara's hands trembled. They didn't fire me for attitude, she whispered. They fired me to bury this. The next morning, she stormed into Ethan Shaw's office. He looked up from his desk, startled. Dr. Harris, did you know? She demanded. He blinked. Know what? That my firing wasn't about conduct. It was a cover-up. Your hospital falsified trial data after a patient died. He stood, his tone sharp. Watch your accusations. They're not accusations. They're facts. I have the files. Her voice shook with anger, but her eyes were fierce. You let them ruin my name to protect a sponsor. To protect profits. Ethan's expression changed, from defensiveness to disbelief. That's not possible. I would have known. You didn't know because you didn't care to. Her words hit him like a blade. For a long moment, silence filled the office, heavy, suffocating. Finally, Ethan said quietly, Show me. She slid a tablet across the desk. The falsified documents glowed on the screen. Ethan read them, his face paling with every line. My God, he whispered. Langston signed these. And Shaw covered it up, Amara said. I was the scapegoat. Ethan sank into his chair, guilt flickering across his features. This could destroy us. Amara's voice was calm but cold. Maybe it should. The next day, a storm began inside St. James. Amara and Ethan reviewed records, traced financial logs, and found payments from the pharmaceutical sponsor buried under research donations. Every file confirmed what she suspected. Her dismissal was the price for corporate silence. By evening, Ethan called an emergency board meeting. When Amara entered the room beside him, gasps rippled around the table. Langston frowned. What's the meaning of this? Ethan placed a folder on the table. It means the truth is finally here. He opened the folder, sliding copies of the falsified trial data across the table. You lied to the board, falsified patient files, and used Dr. Harris as a scapegoat, Langston stammered. This is outrageous, Amara interrupted, her voice like steel. You destroyed a woman's reputation to protect your bonuses. You let a patient die without justice. Tell me, Dr. Langston, how does it feel to be exposed? The room went silent. Dr. Shaw tried to intervene. Ethan, please, this will ruin the hospital's image. Ethan turned to her. You cared more about image than lives. That ends today. Security entered moments later. Langston and Shaw were escorted out, their protests echoing down the corridor. Amara stood motionless, her heart pounding. Years of humiliation and pain finally began to lift. Ethan faced her. You were right, Dr. Harris, about everything. She looked at him, emotion trembling beneath her calm. And now, he exhaled. Now we rebuild, and honestly this time, with you leading. That night, Amara sat alone in her office, watching the rain streak the windows. Her reflection stared back, stronger, wiser, unbroken. The hospital that once cast her out now stood under her command. But it wasn't revenge she felt. It was justice. Her phone buzzed. A message from Ethan. Board voted. You're officially head of cardiac research. Congratulations, Amara. She smiled faintly. Setting the phone aside, outside, thunder rolled softly over the city. She didn't know that the next chapter would test her more than ever, not with betrayal, but with compassion. Because soon, fate would give her a new test, one that would bring her back into the operating room with a decision that would change everything again. The same man who helped restore. Her career would soon need her to save his life. One more time. The first time Ethan Shaw almost died, Amara saved him out of duty. The second time, she would save him out of something far deeper. It happened 6 months later. Amara had transformed St. James Memorial Hospital. Under her leadership, the cardiac department was thriving. She'd introduced mentorship programs for minority medical students, restored ethical oversight, and brought in funding that didn't come with strings. Patients requested her by name. Journalists called her the miracle doctor. But that night, as the city lights blurred in the rain, a call shattered her calm. Dr. Harris? It's ICU. We have an incoming. Male, 38. Cardiac arrest in the ambulance. The ID says, Ethan Shaw. Her pen fell from her hand. What? The nurse's voice trembled. He collapsed during a charity gala downtown. They're 2 minutes out. Amara's heart slammed against her ribs. Without another word, she ran. By the time she reached the trauma bay, paramedics were already rolling Ethan in, pale, motionless, his expensive tux shirt torn open, chest compressions underway, VFib, charging 200 joules. Clear! The defibrillator paddles jolted his body. His chest arched, then fell still again. Amara's voice cut through the chaos. Let me take over. The staff stepped back instinctively. Everyone knew who she was now. She pressed her palms against his chest. Come on, Ethan, don't you dare! The monitor flatlined. Charge again. 300 joule. Clear! Another shock, still flat. The silence was deafening. Someone whispered, Time of... No! Amara snapped. We're not done! She began chest compressions again, her arms trembling. Sweat dripped down her temple. You don't get to go out like this, not after everything. Come back, 30 compressions, 2 breaths. Then, a faint beep, then another. The line flickered, then steadied into a weak but steady rhythm. A heartbeat. The staff exhaled collectively. Someone murmured, He's back. Amara leaned over him, voice shaking. You stubborn man. Hours later, Ethan lay in the ICU, stabilized but unconscious. Amara sat beside him, exhaustion written across her face. Machines beeped softly, the only sound in the dim room. She stared at him, the man who had once been her enemy, then her ally, then something she couldn't quite name. She remembered their fights, their tense silences, their reluctant trust. He had given her justice when the world wouldn't, and now here he was, fragile and human in a way she'd never seen. Why do you keep finding your way to my operating table? She whispered. A faint smile ghosted her lips. I'm starting to think fate has a dark sense of humor. 2 days later, he woke. The morning sunlight spilled through the blinds, soft and golden. Ethan blinked slowly, confusion clouding his eyes. Where am I? Amara exhaled a shaky laugh. alive for one, his gaze focused on her. You again? Seems I'm your personal insurance policy. He tried to smile, wincing. What happened? You collapsed at the gala. Severe arrhythmia, your heart gave out. Again? Again. He looked at her for a long moment. Guess I owe you another one. She folded her arms. You owe me several. They both laughed softly, the sound warm against the sterile air. Then his tone shifted. How bad was it? Bad enough that another minute and you wouldn't be here. He stared at the ceiling. I saw something. Before I blacked out? Amara raised an eyebrow. A light? He shook his head weakly. You. Her breath caught. He turned to her slowly, eyes filled with something raw. You were calling me back. I heard your voice. Amara swallowed. Then I guess it worked. Over the following weeks, Ethan's recovery became more than medical. He often asked her to sit with him during rounds, and sometimes, when the night shift grew quiet, they'd talk about everything, the past, the hospital, what redemption really meant. One night, as rain tapped gently against the window, Ethan said softly, You changed this place. Amara, you changed me. She looked away. You're giving me too much credit. No, I used to think power came from control, but you showed me it comes from courage. She smiled faintly. And you showed me that forgiveness doesn't make you weak. Silence settled between them. Comfortable, intimate. For a fleeting second, it felt like the chaos of the world had paused. Then Ethan said quietly, What happens when I get out of here? You'll go back to running your empire, she said lightly. And I'll keep fixing hearts, he smiled. Maybe start with mine. She froze, unsure whether to laugh or scold him, but his tone wasn't playful. It was genuine, fragile. Amara, I don't know what this is between us, he said. But I know I feel alive when you're in the room. Her chest tightened. You're still recovering. I mean it. His voice trembled. I've seen 1,000 people come and go, but you're the only one who ever saw me. Her eyes softened. She wanted to respond, to say that she felt it too, the pull, the impossible connection born out of chaos. But words failed her, so she just reached out and held his hand. No titles. No apologies. Just two people who'd fought death together. Twice. Months later, St. James Memorial hosted a press conference. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. Ethan stood at the podium, looking healthier, stronger. Amara stood beside him, calm and radiant in her white coat. Today, Ethan announced, we launched the Harris Initiative, a foundation dedicated to ethical medical research and equality in healthcare, named after the woman who reminded us what real healing means. Applause thundered across the room. Reporters turned their cameras toward Amara. Her smile was modest, but her eyes gleamed with pride. When the conference ended, she turned to Ethan quietly. You didn't have to name it after me, he smiled. Yes, I did. That night, long after the applause faded, Amara walked through the hospital halls. The lights were dim, the corridors empty. She paused outside the cardiac ward, the place where it all began. The same walls that once held her shame now echoed her triumph. Her reflection shimmered faintly in the glass. A woman once dismissed, now unstoppable. Behind her, Ethan's voice said softly, You're thinking again. She turned, smiling. Always. He walked beside her. Do you ever regret coming back? She looked around at the nurses she'd trained, the patients she'd saved, the world she'd rebuilt. No, she said. Because this time I'm not fighting alone. He nodded, then offered his hand. Then don't. For the first time, she took it. Not out of duty, but choice. And as they stood there under the soft hum of the hospital lights, Amara realized that maybe saving a life was never the end of a story. Sometimes it was the beginning.